How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the dystopian. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the This is the final scene of
Yeah, exactly. One of James's simps actually tweeted that. Are you fucking me? It's getting so crazy. You know what's funny is I was watching another show on Rumble before this, and it's like I was waiting for an interview to come on that never happened. And there was this guy in the chat that I haven't even thought about literally in years. He's a libertarian guy, and I don't really know that much about him, but I knew of him. He has like 100,000 followers on Twitter. And so this show, I guess, is on his network, which I didn't know when I started watching it. And so he saw me in the chat, and he's like, "Hey, Karlyn, it's been a long time." I was like, "Hi, Austin. What are you doing here?" And he was like, "Hey, you really drove James Lindsay crazy, didn't you?" And I was like,
Credit. Yes.
I was like, people saw. Like, you respected my work. I worked
Thank
so hard
you.
at this.
Thank
This was a year and a half of effort. This was a group effort to drive James crazy, to finally break him, and we did it. And I just feel like we haven't gotten the credit that we rightfully deserve.
I wrote
So
a
many-
speech. Hang on, I got a speech.
Yeah, so many
Don't start playing the music yet. Wait a minute.
So many people have worked so hard to bring this moment about, and I'm just so grateful for the love and support of everyone. And I don't want to name any names because I'll forget people, and the Oscar music is about to play me out. But this is just, I say thank you guys. Thank you for this moment. Thank you.
Totally. This belongs to all of us.
This belongs to all of us. We all won this award together.
Thank you for the golden dildo.
Yeah.
What does
He doesn't-
I don't know. This might be coded, but I'm not sure. What does a Gnostic sex cult have to do with the far left's goal? This guy named Bot is going off
that
about
is
this
coded.
Gnostic sex cult. What that?
And so we're just not going to answer that question.
Okay,
except
so
for-
that's I figured that. So we're just okay. That's why I figured that. Yeah.
James Lindsay is obsessed with lying to his audience. Well, crazy things can he get them to believe? He does it irresponsibly to pocket all that money from the Mills for Liberty. The left hates capital. family. Change blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him. Creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. He used to believe in something, what happened? Mills for liberty. Gnostic sex cult, building his own world. A Gnostic sex cult, unhinged from reality. Totally lost in what can we do? But mocking relentlessly. It's not a Gnostic sex cult, James. No, it's not. Stop lying to your audience. No, it's not. It's not Gnostic change. Grip Mary Nardini tells us queer liberation means the annihilation of capitalism. Catch up, change. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. Whoa. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's capitalism. To pocket all that money from the mills for liberty. The left hates capitalism, but James won't admit it. He refuses to believe queer theory stabilizes normativity. Gender binary and the nuclear family. But James blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him. Creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. Is to believe in something. What happens for liberty? Gnostic sex cult, building his own world. Gnostic sex cult, unhinged from reality. He's totally lost it. What can we do but mock him relentlessly?
All right, guys. Well, I see we're back to the reality of YouTube not sending out notifications. You know, I knew it was too good to be true. I knew it was too good to be true. The shadow ban seemed to be over, and now here we are. Now here we are again. You know, hopefully, you know, listen, it really has been quite a week in terms of like so many new people who, and actually, quite frankly, so many old people too coming back to my content. I've seen so many comments this week from people who are like, I thought I was subscribed to your channel. I haven't seen your content recommended in years. Thank God I found you again. I'm really happy that you're here. Like I've got like, so welcome back for people who maybe saw me 4 or 5 years ago and you just found my content again. Listen, I never stopped streaming. YouTube just stopped recommending my content. And so you know, it's an interesting thing to hear from people who haven't seen my content in a long time, because you've missed a lot. You've missed a lot. You have missed 4 years, over 4 years now, of me progressively driving myself more and more and more insane by spending way too much time analyzing the far left and watching the far left. And so a lot has changed since many people found me in 2020 when I was but an innocent and naive knitting Democrat who left the left. God, such simpler times. I wish I knew back then what I know now. Or maybe I wish I was, maybe what I actually wish is I was still ignorant of all the things that I was ignorant of back then, because it has been a no. No. Don't start. Don't. I barely had a cup of coffee. If you are under the impression that the left is Gnostic in any way, please discard that at the door. That is part of James Lindsay's made up bullshit. Gnosticism has nothing to do with what the left is doing at all. And a lot of people, this is part of why I started overtly antagonizing James Lindsay, and which, by the way, my community, for people who don't know, has been overtly antagonizing and calling James Lindsay out on his bullshit since September of 2023. And so we were in way before all the woke rights stuff. In fact, it's my argument that we are the people that really drove James insane. That's another story for another day. You guys can go back into the archives and see all the content. But the reason that we started calling James on his bullshit is because of the Gnosticism stuff. Because he was lying to so many people. And I had so many people coming into my feed and into my chat going, socialism is all Gnostic, Karlyn. And I'm like, where are you getting that idea? And they're like, well, James Lindsay is telling us it's all Gnostic on his podcast. And I was like, okay, you were saying the opposite. Okay, forgiven. Fine. But it is actually a really big problem. And listen, I do have some things I want to talk about. This is an impromptu stream. The reason I'm doing an impromptu stream, and I want to keep it kind of light, and I kind of want to interact with people in the chat. So if you guys have questions in the chat, now is the perfect time to put those questions in. I'll answer generic questions about the left. I'll talk to you about some of the groups that we can expect to see out at the No Kings protest tomorrow and stuff like that. But the reason I'm doing this stream now at almost 2 p.m. Eastern time instead of later, which is when I normally stream, is because I am going to Boston tomorrow. And my husband and I decided to get a hotel in Boston tonight because we decided it was going to be easier to drive down to Boston tonight and to, I don't know, maybe have a date night and go get some dinner somewhere and do things that normal people do when I'm not talking about socialism on the internet. And then get up tomorrow morning because the Pride event in Boston starts at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And for people who are new to my content, I am not a morning person. I'm a night owl. I stay up until like 3 or 4 in the morning, and then I sleep in, and I sleep until 10 or 11 in the morning, sometimes noon if I'm really, really lucky and don't have a lot to do. And so getting up at the crack of dawn to drive to Boston tomorrow with the roads being closed because a lot of the roads in Boston are going to be shut down because of the Pride stuff. I was just like, maybe why don't we just go down the night before? And the other thing too is that I don't even remember what I was going to say. Oh, the other thing too, the reason I'm doing this stream now is we're going to leave early. So there will not be a 5 p.m. stream today. I'm going to be leaving early to go to Boston. And just so people know, I'm not going to look like this tomorrow. I will have a disguise on tomorrow. People won't be able to recognize. This is why I don't mind talking about like where I'm going to be tomorrow. Also, my husband's going to be with me, so I'm going to be safe. I actually don't expect there to be violence or anything tomorrow. I really don't. I expect there to be interesting things going on. I do want to see protests. I do want to see the people involved. I want to see the groups involved. But I don't actually think I'm putting myself in danger by saying that I'm going to be in Boston because I'm not going to look like this. And the thing of it is that, and I've gone undercover a lot with the left. I've gone to a lot of leftist events. I'm not really a famous I'm not a famous person. So I'm not like a famous YouTuber or anything. There are people on the left who know who I am, but like, they're not on the lookout for me at their events or anything like that. And one of the things that I've learned about going undercover at events is that you are far more self-conscious of the fact that you're not supposed to be there than the other people are, because most people are so self-centered. Most people are so self-centered. They never take their mind off things that directly relate to them. And so you can like walk right in front of them. And I've actually done this at socialist events before. I have gone into socialist events where I know that there are people in the room who know who I am. And I've sat right in front of them, staring at them the whole time. They had no fucking clue I was there, which is always an interesting thing and kind of funny, if I'm being honest about it, because they're so selfish that they can't see. And so I'm leaving early today to go down to the city to spend a night in a hotel with my husband and having a date night, okay? And then going to a Pride Parade tomorrow where there'll probably also be protests and things like that. It's going to be a big-ass event. And I know that there are going to be far leftist groups there. And I'm going to go see what's going on in Boston for myself. And so that's why we're doing a little impromptu stream early. I'm just going to talk about some stuff, and people can feel free to ask questions, especially new people who have found the channel in the past, week or so. Again, really excited that there's so many new people here. Let me show the comments on the screen. You guys can have the chat on the screen. So I did have a question that came in while we were still kind of doing the intro. Guys, please make sure you mount the like button for me. I don't think that YouTube decided to send out notifications for this stream, which it does every once in a while. So please make sure you mount the like button for me. I'm also going to put my Telegram link in the chat, which is t.me/decode the left. So the thing that we use to get around the lack of YouTube notifications is I have a Telegram channel, and I post when I'm going live on the Telegram channel so you can get a notification sent to your phone so we can obfuscate the flawed YouTube system. But mounting the like button lets YouTube know to recommend the stream to more people. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed. YouTube unsubscribes people from my channel like literally all the time. I know that. I've always known that, by the way, but I've had my feed filled with comments in the last week saying, I was unsubscribed for your channel, but I never unsubscribed. I never get notifications, yada, 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 yada. So just double check. Make sure you're subscribed if you want to be. If you don't want to be subscribed, that's fine. I've been watching your videos the last day or so. Where do the paid protesters come in? Okay. I'm about to give you an answer that you don't want to hear. Because this is a very popular talking point on the right, that these are all paid protesters. The fact of the matter is that while there might be onesie and twosie people who are paid to be there, the vast, 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 vast majority, we're talking at least 95%, and I think I'm actually being generous by saying 95%. I actually think it's higher than that. I think at least 95% of the people that are going to be at these protests tomorrow are not paid to be there in any way. Of the people who are paid to be there, they are affiliated directly with an organization. And how the left works, a lot of people say the left doesn't have jobs, which also isn't true, by the way. But the left has an entire ecosystem of organizations and nonprofits and mutual aid networks and places that they can go and work to be what you might call a professional protester or a professional activist. But what you have to understand is the left has very consciously made the decision to build these organizations up, to make sure these organizations have funding, because they care about this type of work. They care about this type of activism. They have a vision for the world that they're trying to create. And so the few people who are going to be paid to be there on Saturday are probably affiliated with one of these organizations. There might be people who are paid to be there in the form of they got a bus ticket to be there, or they got reimbursed for some lunch money or some Lyft money to get them there, because oftentimes there will be mutual aid networks that will make sure that people have transportation. Part of why the left is so successful at organizing protests is they make sure that people have a way to get there. This is exactly, by the way, like a get out the vote effort. And I think Republicans did a much better job of get out the vote efforts in 2024. And so I think you guys understand this stuff. A get out the vote effort is basically when Republicans, and Democrats do this too, when they coordinate they call around to people who are on the voter rolls and they say, do you need a ride to get to the polls? We'll give you a ride to get to the polls. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The left does exactly the same thing with protesting. And so do you need a bus to get to the protest? They bus people in. They rent out buses. Laura Loomer always makes a big deal out of this. She's like, these are paid by China because they're renting out a bus. Well, maybe, I guess, but maybe it's also that they've collected the money through a mutual aid network in order to make sure that they're getting as many people to the protest as possible, because that's part of the point. And so I would not ever make the assumption that someone is paid. And oh, by the way, the reason that so many people on the right think that these are paid protesters is because the right photoshops things all the time that makes it seem like the left is putting out ads for paid protesters. And guess what? Those images that make their way around the internet, they almost always universally turn out to be fake. They're not real. The left doesn't really do that. They don't need to do that, especially not right now. They don't need to do that. There are more than enough people on the left that are perfectly willing to go out and protest for free, especially right now because they're so teed up about the immigration stuff. They're so teed up about all the things the Trump administration is doing. Now we have this thing going on with Iran and Israel, and that's going to be a whole other anti-war insanity. And so people have to understand that the people that you see at these protests and the leftist events, basically, like, they're there because this is who they are. These are their beliefs. This is their identity. They're not doing it because they're getting a sandwich or a bus ticket or anything like that, or access to some pizza. You know, they're not doing it for that reason. They're doing it because they believe in this and they are willing to give up their time in order to go out to do this. And I think the reason that the right thinks that a lot of these people are just paid protesters is because, quite frankly, the right is not willing to do this. And I say that as someone who tried to get people on the right to do this for years. I tried for 2 years, 2020 and 2021, to get the right to do stuff like this. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't show up. I have been to so many right-wing events that I can't even name all of them. And do you know what happens at right-wing events? No one goes to the actual event. They just go to the networking party afterwards and they drink and they network and that's it. And I guess there's a place for drinking and networking and that's all fine. But the right is unwilling to do the things that the left is willing to do because the right doesn't have a strategic long-term vision for the world. The right is almost purely reactionary to say anything the left wants to do is bad. And then they react to it, but they don't have a vision. The left has a vision. Now, that vision is dystopian and terrifying and wrong and bad and not something that any of us, I don't think, would want. But they do have a vision and they're working towards that and they build up entire organizations around that. So this myth of the paid protester, I think, is extremely detrimental. It basically leads to people on the right completely underestimating their enemy. It's the same with the they don't have jobs things. They not only do they have jobs, they literally created entire organizations that are fully funded that they work at all the time. They're not lazy people, guys. Lazy people don't organize mass protests. They just don't. So the right completely underestimates the left because their influencers keep lying to them and saying these are all paid protesters and none of it's organic and it's all fake, when it's just not true. It's just like literally not true. And I promise you, if you stick around my channel and you watch leftist content with us, you are going to see very clearly how untrue it is. And then you're going to start to get pissed off because it is maddening. The amount of misinformation that I've seen on X, Anna Paulina Luna, the amount of misinformation that has been put out there in the last week is, there have been times when I've been sitting in my office and I'm like staring at the wall that's right in front of me. And I'm like, can I just get up right now and just start beating my head against the wall? That's honestly how I felt a lot this week. So let's dispense with the myth of the paid protester, because that's just usually almost never true. But I understand why people think that. And listen, if I answer your questions and I tell you something you don't want to hear, just know I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I understand that a lot of people on the right have been seeking answers from influencers and commentators and pundits that have lied to them on these issues. I'm very sorry you were lied to. I'm very sorry you were deceived, but I'm not going to tell you something that isn't true in order to make you feel good. I'm going to give you the facts as I see them, based on the fact that I've spent the last 4 years watching literally thousands of hours of these people going undercover at their events, I have an archive of leftist content that's the biggest archive on the internet. Like, I can point you to resources and all that stuff, and we'll do that in the coming weeks, but that's where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad. I'm really not. Let's see. Is Antifa the only group that pushes for riots? Well, yes and no. Yes and no. Yes and no. Actually, let me just keep that on the stream. And I do have some other questions that I've kind of like starred in the chat, guys. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. I will do my very best to respond to all of them. Antifa is going to be the main group that's pushing for violence this weekend. By the way, Antifa is not directly affiliated with the protests this weekend. I hope everyone's clear on that. There are a lot of different groups. And actually, let me just show you guys this. There are a lot of different groups. I actually posted a report on my Substack this morning. There we go. And I'll put the link in the chat. The No Kings protest report. This is an overview of the different groups that you can expect to find in the protests this weekend. I'll put the link in the chat so you guys can download it directly. There's a PDF. You can also just read it directly in the chat. And so we have the official partners, and then we have the unofficial participants. We've got Antifa, Party for Socialism and Liberation, Revolutionary Communists of America, Democratic Socialists of America, and there's a whole bunch of other groups. So the reason I say that like Antifa is mostly the only group that is going to do violence, that's mostly true. But there are so many X factors involved this weekend that it's impossible to say that Antifa is the only group that will start violence, because I know, looking at the riot footage in Los Angeles, the immigrant groups and the Mexican nationalist groups have also been provoking violence, especially the Mexican nationalist groups. Now, most locations around the country are not going to see Mexican nationalist groups. Those are going to be mostly Los Angeles, California, like Southern California, probably maybe San Diego. I think there's a big contingent in San Diego. Arizona, Texas, like border states, things like that. So I don't expect to see a Mexican nationalist group in Boston. Maybe in New York. Maybe in Philadelphia, just because Philadelphia is one of the big hub events, so maybe. But I think they could provoke violence if they were there. There's also a queer anarchist collective that I've been expecting to show up at the Pride parades that maybe won't now just because of everything else going on. But there is a queer anarchist collective that we cover quite a bit on the channel called Bashback that recently reconstituted. They're not the same thing as Antifa. There is overlap with Antifa. There are some Antifa members in Bashback, and there are some Bashback members in Antifa. Bashback like literally just reconstituted itself. So Bashback has actually been like a dormant kind of like organizing unit for a while. It was highly effective in like the mid to late 2000s, and then they went quiet for a long time, and now they're kind of coming back with all the new Trump stuff. And so if they're queer anarchists or queer Marxists, they are not afraid to get violent and destructive. They're different than Antifa in that you can identify them. Antifa is going to be wearing black or black and red. Queer Marxists, Bashback, are going to wear pink and black or have an upside down pink triangle. And again, there is some overlap, but these are fundamentally two different groups, and we need to treat them that way because they do have different values and different things that they do. So if they show up at these Pride festivals that are going on, then I do think there is absolutely a chance that they could be violent as well. But the organization that I'm most worried about when it comes to violence this weekend is Antifa. Now, Antifa is doing a couple things at the protest this weekend. The first thing they're going to do, and we covered this on the channel yesterday, the day before, I think it was, we covered it on the channel this week. It's all blending together. Pardon my airheadedness. Antifa has actually created specific flyers to hand out at the No Kings protest. So while Antifa is not directly involved in the organizing and the planning, you can't control who shows up at a protest, right? And so Antifa has basically put together flyers that are specific to introduce the participants of the No Kings protest, who they think are going to be kind of more like normie Democrats and liberals and progressives. Remember, Antifa is a far left radical revolutionary group. They want to violently overthrow the U.S. government. Most people at the No Kings protest tomorrow, they don't want to violently overthrow the government. They're normies. They're Democrats and liberals and progressives. This is why we always remind people that Democrats are not communists. Communists are not Democrats. They're very, very different beasts, as it were. But what Antifa is going to do is they're going to show up at these protests because the far left thinks that this is a great time to radicalize more people to the far left. There are so many people who are disappointed in the Democratic Party as an organizing structure, and I think for very, very, very good reason, to be honest with you. But what people have to understand is just because the Democratic Party is shitting the bed doesn't mean the people who voted for Kamala Harris are going to go to the right. They're not going to join the Republicans. What's happening is these far left groups are trying to radicalize these people to go more to the far left. And so Antifa is showing up to hand out these flyers during the day at the event. The flyers don't have any organizational information on them. They're literally just like a Word document talking about how Trump is a fascist and the Democrats aren't going to save you and stuff like that. They're specifically intended to radicalize people by introducing highly radical ideas to them that maybe they weren't going to be exposed to before. When Antifa shows up to hand out those flyers, they're not going to be dressed in all black and wearing masks. They're going to be dressed like normal people. So there has been a lot of chatter in terms of like Antifa deliberately planning on dressing normal in order to kind of hand these things out. But also, if there are opportunities for them to provoke a violent confrontation with the police or with ICE or with any sort of militarized force like the National Guard or the Marines in LA, they are going to try to deliberately provoke a violent interaction between any sort of militarized force. And I think their preference is to do it while they're dressed like normal people, not while they're dressed in all black, because obviously the minute they put on all black and they're wearing face masks and helmets and all that, everyone knows it's Antifa. But if they're dressed like normal people, they can provoke an interaction with one of these groups like the police. And if they can get the police to come at them violently, they get it on camera. And then they say the police are beating up these innocent protesters. Look, now they've staged the whole thing. They coordinated the whole thing. They agitated the whole thing. They deliberately did it as a PR stunt. But that is another thing that we're going to see. And then, of course, at night, and I've been saying this all week, there will probably be violence at night in major blue cities. I highly recommend people do not come out in major blue cities at night. Stay the fuck home. Watch the live streams. Let the crazy people who are doing on-the-ground coverage put themselves in danger. You don't need to do that. But I fully expect there's going to be violence and rioting and fires and destruction and fireworks and all that stuff at night in Los Angeles. I think it's going to be in Los Angeles, obviously. Chicago, I think, has a pretty good chance of it popping off. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened in Denver, Phoenix, someplace in Texas. I think Atlanta is absolutely going to be violent. I think Seattle is absolutely going to be violent. I think Portland is absolutely going to be violent. Where else? New York probably is going to have violence and destruction. I hope Boston doesn't. I really hope Boston doesn't, but they might. There is a large socialist contingent. Boston is very socialist. There might be some other places that have violence as well, but those are the ones that I'm looking at right now, and those are the ones that I'm hearing most about. And we just gotta, Do I think San Diego could get violent? I think it very well could. Yeah, I think it very well could, especially because it is in such proximity to the border. I think that that you probably will have like Mexican nationalist groups there that will try to provoke something. Let me just go in. I'm going into the starred questions, guys. So a bunch of people have been asking questions the whole time. Let's see. Who do the left think is going to be in charge of the massive committee who will be running things? I mean, the left so what you're talking about is when the left overthrows the federal government and they institute their Marxist utopia. Okay, so when the left does actually have a vision for what type of government they want to build after they overthrow the capitalist government. Now, people got to understand, when the left says they want to overthrow the state, they mean the current state, the current government based on our current constitution. That's what they want to overthrow. The reason that the left wants to overthrow the current government and the current constitution is because they believe the current government is grounded in capitalism. The Constitution protects capitalism. And of course, the left's number one enemy, always and forever, is the capitalist system. Capitalism to the left is not just an economic model, it's also a cultural model. They believe the Constitution and the United States government reinforces the cultural model of capitalism, and capitalism creates all oppression, it creates all hierarchies, and so that's what they want to get rid of. That's not to say they don't want any structure in place, but they want that structure to be more direct and more proportional to the people. And by the way, I'm explaining what the left believes. I don't agree with any of these ideas. I want to make that very clear. I'm not a left. I'm actually probably more far right than like most people watching this video. I'm extremely far right, okay, on a personal level. But I understand what the left believes and I understand how they think, so I'm explaining to you their perspective. The left wants to get rid of the White House. They want to raise the red flag of communism above the White House and reappropriate the White House. They don't want the presidency to exist. The presidency is the ultimate head of the hierarchy. They want to abolish the Constitution. They want to abolish the Electoral College. They want to abolish the Supreme Court. They want to abolish all courts. They want to transform courts into more of like a mediator sort of thing. They want to abolish the United States Senate because it's not proportional representation. The only part of our current government that the left is okay with is a House of Representatives style thing where basically they think that communities will elect people to send them to this larger Congress. But what the left has envisioned is like significantly larger than the current House of Representatives. So that's kind of like that body, that House of Representatives body, but significantly expanded. That is how the left believes they will run things and make decisions in their utopia. And it's stupid and it'll probably lead to a lot of us starvation, death, and all that, but that's what they believe. Most of the organizations on the left are actually not well funded. The exception to that currently is like the Party for Socialism and Liberation and the related parties to that, because that does appear to have a lot of funding. But you also got to understand, even within the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which does have funding ties to the CCP, that's 100% true. The people who are reporting that got that accurate. But what you have to understand is the Party for Socialism and Liberation is a national party. There are also all these different local branches of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And you can look this up. You just look up Party for Socialism and Liberation, Houston, Party for Socialism and Liberation, Denver. These are local branches connected to the national party. The local branches don't get access to the funding of the national party. The reason I know that is I've covered meetings with the local branches where they flat out talk about the fact that they have no money. So the local branches are they're socialists and communists that want to be involved in the cause. And just because their national organization is funded doesn't mean they're funded. And the point that I'm trying to make is, don't make the assumption that people are only doing this for money. It's just not true. And it's a really dangerous assumption to make, because if they're just doing this for money, that means that they don't actually believe any of it. It's much more dangerous if they are actually true believers and they're doing this because they want to. And that's the reality. What's their plan for making most Americans go along with their plans, since most of us just don't believe in communism? Well, if you don't go along with it, you don't eat. If you don't work, you don't eat. If you don't go to the job that you're assigned to do, you don't eat. Because in the socialist and Marxist utopia, they control the food supply. Now, I think we're a ways away from the Marxist revolution, but make no mistake, guys, I do believe this, and I've made videos about this. I've talked about this extensively. I've written about it on my Substack. I'm not going to go in depth into my explanation today because I've done it before. Maybe I'll do it another day. But I absolutely believe the left is going to try to overthrow the federal government in the next 10 to 15 years. I don't think the Civil War is red versus blue, Democrat versus Republican. I think the Civil War is radical revolutionary socialists versus the federal government. So we do have some time. Not a lot of time, probably not enough time, but we do have some time. But after they overthrow the federal government and they take control of things, one of the things they do want to take control of is the production of food and the distribution of food. I have leftists on videos talking about how in the Marxist utopia, people will not have private kitchens because you won't want a private kitchen, because they want to build entire communities. Think of it like 15-minute cities a little bit. It's not quite the same thing, but it's kind of like that idea. Think of it like 15-minute cities where you have access to everything you need within like a 15-minute walk or bike ride or public transportation. The left wants to build communities in which in the middle of the community, there is a community canteen where you go to get all your food and then you eat there with other people in the community. It's like ration cards. Like that's literally what we're talking about. So you don't want to go along with communism? Okay, you don't eat. Simple as. And eventually they'll just put you in a gulag or a re-education camp or something like that. Yeah, I have them on video saying that too. The right likes to say the left can't meme. Your thoughts on how persuasive the left can be with its message? The right is far too obsessed with social media. The right thinks that if something doesn't go viral on Twitter, it's not impactful. I can tell you guys, and listen, man, I've gone throughout the last 5 years, I have gone massively viral on Twitter on more than one occasion. I don't know how many people know this. I broke the Coke Be Less White story back in early 2021. So if you've ever seen those Coke Be Less White images floating around the internet, that was me. Okay. Not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because that story on Twitter alone got over 30 million views. I've gone massively viral on Twitter. The right is convinced that if something doesn't go massively viral on Twitter, that means it doesn't make an impact. As someone who has gone massively viral on Twitter on more than one occasion, I can tell you going viral on Twitter doesn't change anything. Having large numbers on a YouTube video, it might be nice for a day or two, but then everyone moves on to the next thing. It doesn't change anything. So this whole thing, can the left meme? No, the left memes suck. The left sucks at memes, okay? We can all agree on that. But you have to understand that this is not how the left is making change. The left isn't making change by memeing. The left isn't making change by worrying about going viral on Twitter or YouTube or any of these things. They're out in communities. They're in the real world. They're organizing in the real world. They have community centers. They do activities together. They have bookstores that they have meetings at. They do things in person. This is how they organize. This is how they build movements. And it is significantly more effective than what the right does for the long-term thing. So that's what I would say. Like, memes are fun and we all love them and they make us laugh and stuff like that. But are memes an effective organizing tool? No, they're not. Let me see. I'm just going through the starred chats, guys. I see a lot of other chats coming in as well. So I'm going to try to get to as many questions as I can. Hang on. Would they like to have violent counter-protesters? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Actually, this is a great question, Julian, because, like, okay, so the left would love nothing more than for the right to show up and be violent. The left is trying to provoke violent confrontation with the cops, but I promise you, if Trump supporters show up and they start getting violent, you have handed the left a gift on a silver platter. Please don't do this. This is why I've been begging people this week. Do not go to these protests and instigate. I'm going tomorrow, but I'm going to be wearing a disguise and I'm going to be quiet and I'm not going to be talking to anyone. I'm not instigating. I'm going to observe. If you're going to go to these events, go to observe, go to learn. You can't change anything about the event. And I promise you, the left will love nothing more than if some guy in a MAGA hat showed up and started beating people with a bat. The left would love nothing more than if some guy waving a Trump flag with a t-shirt and the hat and all this stuff showed up and started mouthing off to people, and they're going to be ready to videotape it because that's what they want to happen. So please don't do that. Please. You are only giving them material that they will use against you if you do that, and you're accomplishing nothing. So that's my advice there. Hey, tune in, drop out. Thanks for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Do you know how much, if any, funding is the government funding through programs like USAID? There are absolutely some leftist organizations that got USAID money, but not as many as you guys think. Not as many as you guys think. Most of the people who got USAID money are more progressive organizations, which I'm not saying that's good. I think all their funding should be cut for everything. But like you guys have got to start under. I'm so fucking, and this is not your fault, but I'm so fucking sick of the money, the funding, the paid protesters, the funding. I'm so sick of it. I'm going to explain why I'm sick of it. It doesn't actually matter. It doesn't actually matter who's funding this stuff. Now, I'm not saying that we should ignore the information. We should utilize the information. And I'm sure there's valuable things that can be done with it. But can we just acknowledge for a second that there is no universe in which conservatives are ever going to do anything about the funding ever? Conservatives do nothing. Conservatives are way more interested in whining about anti-Semitism, 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 anti-Semitism than they've ever been in fighting the left. And so when I see them whining about they're funded by China, they're funded by China, they're funded. Okay, what are you going to do about it, Anna Paulina Luna? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Can you stop fucking crying on Twitter and actually do something about it for once in your fucking lives? And guess what? There is like one set of organizations that's actually funded by the CCP. And that one set of organizations is the Party for Socialism and Liberation and organizations they're associated with, to include Code Pink, to include the People's Forum, to include Breakthrough News, to include the Answer Coalition. It is true that all those organizations have funding ties to the CCP. Yeah, 100%. If you cut off all of those funding ties tomorrow, the vast majority of activists in that organization would still be leftist activists. They would still be out there at protests. They would still be organizing. They would still be doing everything that they're doing right now. Because the vast majority of activists within those organizations are not being paid. And the vast majority of activists within these organizations don't have access to the funding. So if the conservatives aren't going to do something about it, they need to shut the fuck up. But people also need to understand that even if conservatives do cut off all the CCP money tomorrow, ban all CCP money forever in the US, however they do it, I don't care. Even if they cut off literally 100% of the funding tomorrow, that would not make less leftist activists. They would still be doing every single thing that they're doing. They may not have the nice signs that they've been printing. They may not have the office spaces that they've been renting out. They may have to fundraise a little bit differently to rent a bus to get people to protest. But I promise you, if they cut off the money, every single person doing activism with the Party for Socialism and Liberation is still going to come out and do activism with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And by the way, if they cut off the money from the CCP for the Party for Socialism and Liberation, that doesn't account for Antifa. Antifa is not funded through anything. Antifa is not a well-funded organization. That doesn't account for the Revolutionary Communists of America. The Revolutionary Communists of America are funded explicitly through membership dues. The Revolutionary Communists of America get their members to pay them 1 day's wages per month. 1 day's wages per month to the organization. They've been doing this since 1992. They have millions of dollars in the bank because they have dues and they have voluntary donations. The vast majority of organizations on the left are funded in the following way: membership dues, voluntary donations, and mutual aid. Publishing. There are a lot of far left socialist book publishers in this country. They publish a fuck ton of books. They own revolutionary, radical bookstores all over the country where they host events and trainings and education and that sort of thing. The events are another source of their funding because people buy tickets to the event. That makes them money. They sell books, they sell merchandise, stuff like that. That is how the vast, 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 vast majority of leftist activity is funded: through dues, through voluntary donation, through publishing, and through event ticket sales or merchandise sales. And guess what? Anna Paulina Luna can't do shit about that, and she's not going to do shit about that because all of that is perfectly legal in the United States. And this is the problem that the right has yet to contend with, because they focus entirely 100% of their energy on saying China, 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 and they don't actually hinge into reality with what is really going on, and therefore, ergo, they never solve the fucking problem. So I'm not trying to be like aggressive towards you, but this is one of the most maddening things to me because I'm like, A, shut the fuck up. You're not going to do anything about this anyway. B, even if you cut off all the funding tomorrow, these are true believers. This is their identity. This is everything they live for. This is what they built their life around. You think taking away their fucking allowance is going to prevent them from doing this? It's not realistic. I'm sorry. It's just not. Let's see. During those Republican town halls, the left media wanted to spread the narrative that they were all Trump voters protesting their own reps. Is that true, or were these Democrats? Well, certainly Trump voters don't protest anything. So no, that wasn't true. Trump voters don't protest anything, please. I already answered that question. Please talk about the fracture in the Black and Brown coalition on the left, as leftist blacks felt betrayed by the bump in Latino support for Trump. The blacks seem to conflate Latino with illegals. So someone asked me, I don't have a lot to say about this right now, but what I will say is someone asked me about Black Lives Matter earlier today, and they're like, why isn't Black Lives Matter in your report? I'm like, because Black Lives Matter isn't really a thing on the left anymore. Not really. They do still exist. They exist in schools, but like, I actually haven't seen a ton in relation to like Black socialists or Black communists. And in general, honestly, like the Black socialists and communists are usually the least of our worries, if I'm being honest. This is why it's so funny to me that the right is always like the left hates white people, the left hates white people. The white socialists are far and away more dangerous than the Black socialists, and it's like not even close. Do you think Trump will be aggressive with National Guard use in many states? Well, I mean, I think we've seen a couple governors call out the National Guard, haven't we? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Hey, Thomas, thank you for the super chat. You're absolutely right. Don't take the bait. Yeah, don't show up at these events, Republicans. Don't do it. Okay, I have to go back through the chat because you guys were asking a lot of questions in the chat while I was going through the starred questions. So let me go back through the chat and see what else I can find. Hope everyone's having a good day. Do you see a ton of questions coming in? Hang on. I have to scroll back a ways in the chat, guys. Okay, I think I'm where I left off. Okay. Now I'm just going through the chat. Let's see, I answered that one already. Are there some on the left actually rooting for casualties this weekend? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I'll even give you one better than that. There are people on the left who would sacrifice themselves to become a martyr. We saw this with Aaron Bushnell. What was it? Over a year ago? Aaron Bushnell was what branch of the military was he in? He was in one of the branches. I think he was in the Air Force. And he dressed up in his military uniform and he set himself on fire in Washington, D.C. and died. That's called revolutionary suicide. If you think of Jim Jones and the People's Temple, which was a socialist endeavor, they were overtly socialist and communist. We actually watched a documentary about them a while back. Jim Jones committed a massive act of what they call revolutionary suicide. Revolutionary suicide is actually a thing on the left. You can Google it. NPR has done stories about this. I think that the DC shooter a couple weeks ago that shot the two people outside the Israeli embassy, I think he was trying to commit an act of revolutionary suicide. I think he didn't think he was going to survive because he explicitly referenced Aaron Bushnell, the guy who set himself on fire, in his manifesto. And so I think that he thought that he was going to get shot by the cops or something. Obviously ended up getting arrested. He's probably going to end up getting the death penalty, all that. So he's going to die either way, probably. But I would not be surprised if at some point we started seeing leftists sacrifice themselves as an act of revolutionary suicide. Because again, guys, you have really got to understand, the left believes every single thing that they say and do. It is their worldview. It is part of who they are. And many of them are very, very willing to get sacrificed for the cause if it leads to the eventual revolution that they are dedicating all their waking hours to. No, the left just doesn't want to win the midterms. No, they don't. They don't care about elections. How did communism become such a force across the United States, considering the wars, the fight the U.S. took to various countries in the past decade? The Frankfurt School came to America in the 30s and set up shop at Columbia University. When the Frankfurt School came to America and set up shop at Columbia University, they started producing a whole bunch of college professors that then went and taught in the colleges and universities. Those college professors eventually took over the colleges of education, where they ended up teaching the teachers that were teaching the kids in the K through 12 schools. This was done by about the 70s. By around and so the colleges basically the far left, the Frankfurt School are far left communists, right? The far left took over the colleges and universities. Then they took over the colleges of education. Then they got put in charge of the teacher training. Then they started training all the teachers to go into the K through 12 public schools and indoctrinate your little darlings in public school. It took decades to fully capture the public schools. They fully captured them around about 2008, 2009, 2010. It took them literally decades because the left plays the long game, the battle of inches. So pretty much every single person that has been in public school since 2008-ish has been indoctrinated to far left ideas in public school from the time they were 5 years old. That's how they did it. They took over the universities. They made everyone think they had to go to the universities. They taught them all this leftist bullshit in the universities. Eventually, once they got powerful enough in the universities, it trickled down into the teacher education programs and got into the public schools. Once it got into the public schools, they started teaching it earlier and earlier and earlier, removing all anti-communist material from public schools and instead replacing it with pro-communist stuff or stuff about equity and things like that and systemic racism and all that bullshit. That's how they did it. That is how they did it. Leftist politicians, are they really believers in whatever flavor of the left, or are they just parroting the voters? Okay, so when you have leftist politicians and you're thinking like AOC or Bernie Sanders or Ayanna Pressley or Ilhan Omar, stuff like that. So when you have quote unquote leftist politicians, they're almost always Democratic Socialists of America. There is a schism on the left between reformists, like the Democratic Socialists of America, and the revolutionaries, which are the violent groups that you're going to see doing the riots and things like that. You are never going to see the Democratic Socialists of America rioting. The reason is the Democratic Socialists of America still believe in working within the current system, okay? So they believe in winning elections and making small changes through politics and stuff like that. The revolutionaries, who are the ones causing all the violence, do not believe in elections. They do not vote in elections. They did not vote for Kamala Harris. They did not vote for Joe Biden. They did not do any of that stuff. They don't believe in the elections and the electoral process. What they want is to overthrow the entire system. And so when you have the revolutionaries, they actually look at people like AOC and Bernie Sanders, and they call them traitors. Overtly. Like the people who did the Columbia University encampment were complaining about the fact that AOC tried to show up at their encampment because they think that AOC is a traitor. So while there are leftist politicians that are involved in like the Democratic Socialists of America, they're not actually far enough left for real communists and socialists and revolutionaries. Let's see, just going down the channel, going down the chat, guys. Please make sure you mount the like button for me if you would be so kind. This is an impromptu stream because I will not be streaming later today, so I decided to go live a little bit earlier to just take some questions. Why did we allow any communist party to establish itself in the U.S. in the first place? Well, that's a great question, Rich, and I think that's a great question for your Republican politicians who currently control literally every lever of the government and yet don't seem actually concerned with the revolutionary communists in their midst. Because I said this from the beginning. Okay, you take someone like Mahmoud Khalil. Mahmoud Khalil is the Columbia University student that the Trump administration is trying to deport for protesting in a pro-Palestine protest. They're saying that Mahmoud Khalil is a terror threat because he was at a pro-Palestine protest. That's bullshit and garbage and an open violation of free speech. What they should have done is say, Mahmoud Khalil is part of a revolutionary communist organization with the explicit goal of overthrowing the federal government, and that is actually currently against U.S. law. And that is the reason he should be deported. The Trump administration won't do that because they're so focused on anti-Semitism, which, by the way, isn't even real. The left is not anti-Semitic. The left doesn't care if people are Jewish. There are many Jewish leftists. There are many Jewish groups on the left. It is such a bullshit narrative. But that is all the Trump administration is focused on because Trump is completely bent over and cocked to Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel. Trump is basically bent over the desk in the Oval Office, and Benjamin Netanyahu is like, and that's why you see all this anti-Semitism bullshit, because we as a country, our politicians are bought for and paid for by Israel. I don't care if people are Jewish, but I'm speaking facts here, okay? And so you will never see the Trump administration focus more on the far left than they're focusing on the anti-Semitism because there's no money in getting rid of communists. But there is money in talking about anti-Semitism endlessly, even when it's bullshit. Could it possibly be much sooner than we think or want to admit? I think you're talking about the communist revolution. Yeah, it could be any time. Yeah, what the left is trying to do right now is they're trying to elicit what they call a pre-revolutionary crisis. And the left doesn't know when their revolution is going to be. Listen, so I talked about the difference between the reformists and the revolutionaries with the different socialist groups, right? So then you might say, well, Karlyn, the Party for Socialism and Liberation is a political party that ran candidates in elections. The Revolutionary Communists of America are a political party. Why are you telling us they don't want to participate in elections if they're literally forming political parties? Because they're not forming political parties to participate in and win elections. They know they're never going to win an election. They're forming political parties to give people something to join, to create a social ecosystem where they bring people in, they get people to go to meetings, they talk to them about what's going on, they get them to read their books, they get them to go to their protests. They're creating an insular social ecosystem of people who get sucked into their cult and then only listen to other people in the cult. They're doing this because they think a pre-revolutionary crisis is going to happen at any minute, and they want to be prepared with an organizing structure in order to start the revolution as soon as the pre-revolutionary crisis happens. So yeah, it could very well be anytime. I think we've got a little while yet, but I could be wrong. Let me see. I'm going through the chat right now, just looking for other questions. I'm way behind in the chat, guys, just so you know. I hope people are enjoying these explanations. I'm trying to give it right down the middle. And again, I'm just describing what the left talks about in their presentations. I'm not saying what I believe. I'm saying what the left says in their presentations. Let's see. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Anna Paulina Luna is basically incorrect about every single thing I've seen that woman post. I muted Anna Paulina Luna on Twitter last night on both her accounts because I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, you are spewing massive amounts of bullshit out to millions of people and you're being so fucking irresponsible. So no, Anna Paulina Luna can currently suck Benjamin Netanyahu's dick for all I care because she's massively misinforming the public and it's really pissing me off. Scott says, so the majority of the protesters are simply being used by leftist groups. No. That's not what I said. What I said is the majority of protesters are true believers who 100% believe in what they're doing. They're not being used by anyone. They know what they're doing. They know what they want. They know what they're trying to build. They're there because they want to be there. They're there because they want to participate. They're not being used by an overlord. This is, again, another misperception that people on the right have. They're there because they want to be. Let's see. You like angry, opinionate women? Well, you're going to like me just fine then. Actually, I'm not really that angry right now. I'm more just tired. I'm like exhausted, guys. I am exhausted. I've been doing so much analysis and just consuming content. And it's just crazy. It's like there's so much content right now in terms of just like things happening all over the country. So I'm doing my best to keep up with all of it, but I am tired. I'm too old for this. And by too old, I mean 29, obviously, but maybe a little bit older than that. But I'm just going through the chat. Hey, thanks, Suzanne. I appreciate it. Richard, thank you for the super chat. People are finally realizing you've been right all along. Yo. People are finally real. Can I get a round of Karlyn was right in the chats? Listen, I know. Maybe people don't like, they're like, Karlyn, stay humble. But you know what? Listen. I have been screaming about this for years. You guys don't know. Well, there are some people, the people on the channel that have been around for a while, they know. You guys, but for people who are new, you don't know how long I've been screaming about this and no one has listened. And I got made fun of. I got defamed. I got smeared. I like most conservative influencers have blocked me and half the people in my community because they didn't want to fucking listen. I used to waste so much time trying to reach out to conservative influencers and they would just laugh my stuff off every single time. They said, well, I don't really think this is real or this is just Frangered. People don't really care about this. And then they post some stupid fucking story that isn't even relevant. So I'm sorry if people think I'm not being humble, but I have worked incredibly hard over the last 4 years to collect the amount of evidence that I've had, to do the type of analysis that I do. I stream 6 days a week trying to teach people about this stuff because I'm absolutely afraid that we're going to see a communist revolution in this country and no one is fucking paying attention. And what I see is just massive amounts of misinformation coming out of the conservative right because they're trying to shill a narrative to make money. And it turns out I was right all along with every single thing that I said, with every prediction that I made. And so I'm going to take my victory lap. And if people don't like it, I'm sorry. I have earned this moment, okay? I have earned this moment through blood, sweat, tears. I have sacrificed my very sanity to be able to do this. Do you guys know how much far left content I have watched? I have watched thousands of hours of socialist trainings. I have lost my mind becoming obsessed with the left. And I do it all to inform the public, and I never got any credit for it, and no one ever talked about it because they were too offended by my tone, or I said something they didn't like on Twitter, or I refused to support Israel when they demanded that I did. That was actually the biggest thing. Do you guys really want to know why my content will never be shown on conservative media? I do not support Israel. That's actually the biggest thing. And by the way, I don't care if you do support Israel. If you're a Zionist, more power to you. I personally don't care. I think we're allowed to disagree. All right? But the reason that you will not see conservative influencers cover my content is I do not support Israel. And I will not say that I do. And I will not capitulate to the conservative bullshit narrative that they want everyone to capitulate to. I won't do it. The people that find my content are the real ones. The people that find my content are the ones that actually want to know what's going on. And I will show you what's going on. And, you know, hopefully people's voices just start getting louder and louder and louder so we can drown out all of the bullshit Con Inc. shills that have been dominating this entire space for years and years and years. Sorry to go on a little bit of a rant, but everyone that's new here should know exactly what I stand for, right? How many nations does Antifa use direct action in? Oh, all over the place. Antifa is worldwide. So that's actually a great question. And there are many more communist and socialist countries than the United States. Australia is way worse than us. Canada is way worse than us. The UK is way worse than us. So the United States on the scale of communism is not as bad off as many other countries out there. Do I buy the argument that they're sending in the Marines to escalate the riots? No, not at all. But I also don't think that the Marines are enough. I don't think they sent enough people to Los Angeles. I just don't. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think what they sent is going to be enough to solve the problem, though. So we'll see. I think the Trump administration drastically underestimates the problem. Hey, Donnie girl, thank you. I do appreciate it. Yep, YouTube fuckery is always at play, isn't it? Guys, please make sure you mount the like button for me. If you don't want to mount the like button, give the like button a kiss on the cheek, a slap on the ass, hold its hand. I don't know. Do whatever you want to the like button. Just do something, though. I would appreciate it. Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you are not already. Let's see. I'm just going through the chat. I'm way behind the chat, by the way. What minimum level of evidence would you be willing to accept that protesters and rioters are being funded by NGOs or central planning? The only evidence that I use is primary source evidence directly from the left. What do I mean when I say primary source evidence? So if you look at someone like Data Republican is using secondary and tertiary evidence. What that means is Data Republican is getting fed propaganda from influencers and other people in her DMs. She's not going directly to the source of the information. She's taking it 2 or 3 or 4 levels out, and she's extrapolating out that it's true or that it's fully in context when it's not. So the only source of evidence that I will accept for anything is direct primary source information. That means financial documents that are not interpreted through any sort of scheme. I want to see the financial documents directly. That means videos of people directly talking about this stuff from leftist trainings. I don't want to see clips out of context. I want to see the full video. I want to see books that leftists have written. I want to see organizations and the organizational documents that are being run by leftists. I don't want a newspaper article. I don't want a piece of propaganda that you Photoshop together with multiple different sources. I want to know where the source is for everything. I want the date of that source. I want the full context of that source. My evidentiary standards are extremely high. And one of the things that I've learned over the years of doing this is that most people on the internet don't know what primary source information looks like. But the reason that my work is so accurate is because I do have an extremely high evidentiary standard. If it's not primary source evidence and I don't see the full context, I don't factor it into the analysis because there's so much bullshit. There's so much misinformation. There's so much stuff that's taken out of context. So when I say primary source evidence, I mean, I am watching direct leftist trainings. There's no interpretation. This is what the left is saying to each other. I'm reading their manifestos. I'm reading their communiques. I'm going on anarchist websites. I'm seeing what they're directly doing. The news source that a lot of people get from about the left is, quite frankly, Twitter, where people are taking clips out of context. People are using second or third or fourth hand sources. They're spinning it up into some meme or some interpretation that may or may not be related to reality. They're not even getting all the different groups right. So when you go to the direct primary source information, you never lose because the evidence is what the evidence is. And it's a lot harder to do it, and it's a lot more time consuming to do it. And that's part of the challenge that a lot of people have with my content because, like, people are like, Karlyn, I'm not watching a 4-hour video about socialism. Okay, fine. You don't have to watch a 4-hour video about socialism, but I will spend 4 hours doing an analysis on a video about socialism in order to get the full breadth of the information. And if you want to watch, you can. And maybe I'll make a clip later and maybe I won't. But like, it takes time to review a lot of this stuff. It just does. But the reason, again, that my analysis is so accurate is because I slow down and I take the time to actually look at things and I look at it in its full context and I don't take anyone's word for anything. You want to present me a piece of evidence, fine. But if you're trying to present me a piece of propaganda or something to drive a specific narrative, that's not going to fly here. Let's see. Going down the chat. Sorry if I'm missing any questions, guys, but I'm way behind in the chat. You know, this is a good question. The 50501 movement. This is something I just learned about the other day. So, what you're talking about, I think, is this. I think you're talking about this, right? 50-51, 50 protests, 50 states, one movement. This is, and actually, if people want something to look into, this could be a good opportunity for people to investigate something. This is the organization that's actually organizing the protest this weekend. So there's been a lot of talk about Indivisible organizing the protests, which is true. Indivisible is a key partner in the No Kings protest. Hang on, I need to take a drink of water or coffee in this case. So Indivisible is one of the lead organizers on the protest this weekend. But the organization actually running the protest is this 50-51 organization. I don't know much about this organization because there's just not that much information available. But this is the organization that's actually been organizing all the protests. And where you know about this is, hang on, No Kings. Go to partners. There it is, 50-51 events. See, 50-51 events. And if you go to partners, the very first partner listed on the No Kings website is that organization. But it's some sort of PAC or something, and I don't know where their funding is coming from. So that's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. Maybe we'll find out. Why no stream today? Because I'm going to Boston early, and that's just going to be the way it is. And I'm going to go, and Victor and I are going to have a date night. Okay, Suzanne? Victor and I are going to Boston. We're getting a hotel for the night. We're going to go out to a nice dinner, and we're going to have a date night, and it's just going to be the way it is. And I'm going to leave early just because maybe I want to. Okay? It's been a long week. I have to go to a Pride event tomorrow. I have to wear a disguise tomorrow. Go to a Pride event. I will have a nice dinner tonight. Oh, let me see. I'm just going through the chat, guys. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not actually 29. I just say I am. I am perpetually 29. Tip jar for the crown. Thank you. Thank you for all the Karlyn is right. I appreciate it. Donnie girl, thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate it. Well, yeah, I mean, unironically, like most, listen, I'm not going to lie. My content takes a very, like, I will train you to sit here and watch socialism for hours, and you'll be perfectly happy doing it. But most people do not have the attention span for my content. That's okay. I make smart people content on this channel. I do not make dumb people content. If you want dumb people content, there are plenty of content creators out there. How can we help? What can we do to help stop this madness? Oh, I love this question. Okay, you're not going to like the answer, though. What you can do, the most important thing that you guys can do, subscribe to the channel, show up to my streams where I'm covering the left, especially Socialism Saturday. Socialism Saturday is like my flagship show, and hopefully I will be back tomorrow to do Socialism Saturday. Fingers crossed, if I'm not back tomorrow in time to do Socialism Saturday, there's a reason for it, and there's probably something going on, and you'll just have to trust me. But normally we do Socialism Saturday every Saturday at 6 p.m., and we watch real revolutionary socialist content. We also watch a lot of far left content throughout the week, too. Normally, we're obviously doing riot and protest stuff now. But the number one thing you guys can do not underestimate the power of this. Show up to the streams and participate in the chat and learn as much as you can. The very first step that everyone needs to take in order to defeat the enemy is that you have to learn as much as you possibly can. If you do not understand your enemy, you can't defeat them. And I promise you, once you spend a couple weeks watching my streams, you will learn why I say to you, you have to sit your ass down and learn. That is the very first step. If you're not willing to do that, you're not useful to me. The next thing is share my content out with as many people as possible. Share my content out to your friends. Share my content out to your family. Share it out to show people what is going on. Utilize the resources on the Substack. Utilize the clips. If you need a resource that I haven't given you yet, ask me for it and I'll see what I can do. I've got a lot of content resources I'm going to be building up, or at least I plan to build up specifically for this purpose. So that is what I need people to do. I need people who are interested in learning to come and learn as much as you can. I will teach you how to teach this content out to more people, because we cannot rely on conservative media to save us. We need to save ourselves. And the very first step to doing that is by learning about our enemy in the way that they understand themselves. Because if you don't understand your enemy, you can't defeat them. And our enemy happens to be really big and really powerful and violent and crazy. And we need to figure out how to bad news bears this situation. We are scrappy underdogs in this insurgency. Make no mistake. We are scrappy underdogs. We're like the Wolverines in Red Dawn. That wasn't a great place to be, because those kids in Red Dawn, they were living out in the middle of the woods and they had to be scrappy about everything they did. We are them. We are the scrappy insurgents in the middle of the woods. And if we don't take the time to understand the enemy that we're fighting, then we can't get ahead of them, because the enemy that we're fighting is so much bigger and so much more powerful than us that we have to really zone in on what's important. So that's what you can do. And if you want to give me money to support my work, do that. Karlyn.substack.com. I would appreciate that. But you don't have to. I keep the vast majority of my work free for everyone. And I'm very grateful for the people who choose to fund my work through super chats or signing up on the Substack or things like that. It really does help out, because I spend all my time doing this. If Antifa had their way, where would you move? Where would you move to if you were forced out of the country? Oh, I don't know where I would move to. If Antifa has their way, I'm going to the gulag. So let's see. Let's see. This is like what James Lindsay does? No. James Lindsay makes shit up on the internet. Oh, yeah, you're talking about the primary sources? Yes, that's exactly right. James Lindsay makes shit up on the internet that's not real and not hinged into reality. Do I believe Homeland Security was misled by internet BS into believing the rioters are NGO funded? Yup. Yes, I do. 1,000%. And this is why people give me so much shit. They're like, Karlyn, why are you starting infighting with people on your own side? You and Data Republican are on the same team. And I'm like, there is no fucking universe in which I am on the same team as Data Republican. I am on team Hinge into Reality. Data Republican is on team shill conservative bullshit narrative. We are not friends. We are not on the same side. And so do I absolutely believe that Data Republicans' bullshit has led directly to the federal government being completely misinformed about what is going on? Yes, I do. And this is why I tell people, they say, what can we do? What can we do? The first thing you need to do is learn and hinge into reality, because when people are making decisions based off of blatant, open misinformation, do you really expect that you're going to be able to beat your enemy if you're making decisions based off of misinformation? Because you think the target is over here. The target's really over here, though. What Data Republican and all these conservative bullshit slingers do, it's the issue of the magician and the magician's assistant. The magician is doing his trick over here on the stage. The magician's assistant is twirling around in a short little dress, and you can see her boobs. And she's twirling, and she's so pretty, and she's twirling around over here because the magician is doing the trick over here, and they want you to look over here at the twirly woman in the sparkle dress where you can see her boobs. The target is here. Conservative bullshit influencers are making everyone look over here. Data Republican is the magician's assistant. It's the distraction. The left is over here. That's where we need to be looking. Let's see. Are the same groups that support and fund Antifa abroad? I don't know the answer to that, Carlos. I'm sorry. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I don't study things outside the United States for the most part, very rarely. Let's see. I didn't say there would be no Socialism Saturday. I'm going to try to make it back. I'm not going to dye my hair blue. I actually do have blue hair dye, though. But I do not currently plan on dyeing my hair blue. I do have another plan, though. Let's see. Think I'm almost caught up in the chat. I'm so close. Oh, I got to the Red Dawn part of the chat. Okay. Red Dawn is a great movie, by the way. The original, well, actually, the remake of Red Dawn isn't like that bad. The original of Red Dawn is obviously the ultimate with Patrick Swayze. How do I make my 15-year-old son understand what they are teaching him? He is communist, wants a revolution. Oh, I've got a great resource for you. Hang on. Are you ready? Are you ready for the greatest resource you're ever going to find for this? Welcome, Leo, to my book publishing website. Because I started my own book publishing company because I have a lot of books I want to write and I want to be able to do it my way. My book publishing website is redmenacepress.com. If you have an annoying teenager that is a communist, that thinks they understand communism, here's what you need to do. I published a book earlier this year called Debunking the Communist Manifesto. This book is a 400-page rant where I worked out all of my feelings on Karl Marx and the Communist Manifesto. And what I did is I went through and debunked literally every single part of the Communist Manifesto. So if you have a child that believes they are a communist, here is what I would do. I would buy them this book. I would make them read this book. I would make them do a book report on this book. Because if you see in the book, actually, do I have one sitting here somewhere? I do. This is my proofing copy of the book. That's why it has this band on it. New copies won't have that. In this book, I go through section by section of the Communist Manifesto, and I debunk literally every single section. Literally every single section has a historical reality section. It has context with a modern parallel. I also have hundreds of references. Every single thing I say in the book is sourced so that you don't have to take my word for it, 15-year-old communist. You can go directly to the source and you can see for yourself. So make them read this book. It's a really thick-ass book. I told you, this is a 400-page rant on the Communist Manifesto. Because I had some feelings to work out, all right? So that is going to be a great resource there. And you can check out my other books too. I wrote a book this year called A Brief History of Racism, which is about the origin and the evolution of the term racism. I also wrote a dystopian fantasy book called The Communist Manifesto, a revolutionary fairy tale. That's like if you like Brave New World in 1984 and stuff like that. I also just published a book called Alice in Queerland, which is about, basically it's a dark satire based on Alice in Wonderland. So buying my books is a great way to support my work, guys. You can find book. I also have a couple of books that I'm still working on. You can see what's coming up there. So that is Red Menace Press, and you can go there, and that's a great way to fund the work I'm doing. But that Communist Manifesto book, the Debunking the Communist Manifesto book, I explicitly wrote that because I wanted to give people a reference manual to debunk every single part of the Communist Manifesto. And so make your kids read it. That's what I would do. This is about communism and/or versus anti-whiteism. Oh, God. Okay. The dissident right is confused. Well, I shouldn't say that. Okay, let me start again. There is a big difference between what the left actually wants to do when they talk about whiteness and what the dissident right, or the people who are saying they hate white people, they want to kill white people, they want to genocide white people, think they want to do. Are there people on the left who don't like people with white skin color? You can always find crazy people who are going to say anything. But what I will tell you is that leftist activism for decades, critical race theory for decades, intersectionality for decades has never, ever, 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 ever been about skin color. And I know that because, oh shit, just dropped my Debunking the Communist Manifesto book. I wrote a book about this called A Brief History of Racism. It's a much shorter book. It actually is a brief history. It's a quick read. This book traces the origin and the evolution of the term racism and explains explicitly how all throughout history, and I use direct quotes from the people involved, you never have to take my word for it, this is all historical information. It explains explicitly why it was never about skin color. It was always about what they call systemic racism or institutional racism, which means the system that upholds racism, which by what they mean by that is capitalism. Okay. So when the left is talking about whiteness or white supremacy or any of these things, they're not talking about skin color. The left invented the term whiteness to mean people who did not work in the sun. It wasn't about skin color. It was about who was the boss, who was the bourgeois, who was the capitalist. Now, the dissident right especially, and the people who are talking about white racial conscious, I'm not suggesting you guys don't have legitimate grievances. I'm not suggesting that the inevitable outcome of some of the left's policies will be exactly what you say they are. I don't want the erasure of white people. I am extremely fucking white. I am French and British and Irish, okay? I am extremely fucking white. And I posted my 23andMe because people always said that I was Jewish. And I'm like, no Jewish. French, Irish, British, and a teeny tiny little bit of Spanish thrown in there. That's it. I am very fuck off European, okay? So I'm not suggesting that people on the dissident right don't have legitimate grievances. I think a lot of the grievances are legitimate. What I am saying is the left is trying to do something different than what you think they're doing. And by not understanding what the left is trying to do, it's again allowing the left to get away with everything. So if you want the left to win, then keep saying the left hates white people, the left hates white people, the left hates white people. The left fucking loves it. And they'll use it to win. And the inevitable outcome of the left's policies is absolutely the erasure of white people, but that's not the intent of what they're doing. It's not the intent of it. So the inevitable outcomes of their policies have much broader implications than just white people. Okay. So again, I'm not saying that you don't have legitimate grievances. I think you do. I just think they're completely different grievances. And what you need to understand is the left is trying to do something so much bigger than just white people. And in addition, the vast majority of far leftists are white. They just are. If the left really hated white people in the way that the right likes to say they hate white people, there wouldn't be events full of fuck off white people that look just like me. So I'm happy to have more of this discussion another day. It's a topic I've talked about extensively. Hopefully Andrew Wilson finds his balls and wants to actually discuss this topic with me, because I do that in a second. But Andrew Wilson seems to be a little bit afraid of that, and that's fine. He doesn't have to. I don't really care either way, but I will talk about that a little bit more another time. Do I predict that Israel's attack versus Iran will make the riots this weekend worse? No, I think the riots were going to be bad anyway. The left is very anti-war, so they're certainly going to be concerned about this, as I think most people should be concerned, but I think that it's not really going to change their plans for this particular weekend. Let's see. Does Anna Paulina Luna have fake boobs? I don't know, man. I don't know. Hey, Elizabeth. Listen, Elizabeth, we love ex-leftists on this channel. I am an ex-Democrat. I was never a far leftist, but I'm an ex-Democrat. I have other ex-leftists that watch this channel. And I always appreciate it when ex-leftists come on here and they're like, Karlyn really understands the left. I'm like, yeah, girl. Yeah, I do. Actually, sometimes we have current socialists and communists who show up to watch the channel because I understand their ideology better than they do, which is always kind of funny. But I appreciate you taking the time to be here. Learned more about the left in a handful of your videos versus years of right-wing media. Thank you. Shared with my family. Hey, thank you for that super chat. I really appreciate it. Keep coming back. I will teach you lots and lots and lots. Karlyn actually understands the left. Too many right-wingers are fairly extreme in their views and don't see the truth. They're too brainwashed. Yeah, real. Yeah, I don't know what I did to break the algorithm, guys. I really don't. But please help me continue to break the algorithm. My content has been suppressed for years. I would love to have more people interacting with this content. I haven't. This is like the first time my content's been visible to new people in a while. So if you like what you're seeing, please mount the like button for me. Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. The best way to keep seeing my content is when you see my videos show up, just click on them. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but let YouTube know you want my videos by continuing to click on them when they show up. And hopefully we can defeat the shadow ban, and hopefully we can get more people watching this content. And I really appreciate everyone who's come out. I want to remind people, I do have a Telegram channel you can follow. It's t.me/decode the left. And I do post there when I go live. Also, make sure you're subscribed to my Substack so you can get notifications there, because YouTube has fucked me over for years. And it's actually been really gratifying to see all the new people showing up, because I'm like, oh, people did want this content. Because I was starting to wonder, people on my channel will tell you, earlier this year, I was like, I don't even know if people want this content. My content doesn't get out to new people. It's really hard. It sucks. And then I see all of a sudden, I've gotten well over like almost 4,000 new subscribers in the last 4 days. It's like all of a sudden people have access to the content for some reason. I don't know what algorithm god I did something nice to. I have no idea. But like, it's like all of a sudden people find the content and they're like, oh, we actually do want this content. I'm like, oh, people wanted this content all along and YouTube was just hiding it from everyone. So I really do appreciate all the new people that are here to learn, because I have been beating my head against the wall for years trying to teach this shit. And I was about to give up. I really was. I was about to give up. But I didn't, and here we are, and I'm really glad I didn't give up. Why do communists believe this rhetoric if no communist country actually follows it? Because they really do believe that real communism and real socialism has never been tried for a variety of reasons. They believe Stalin fucked it all up because they believe that communism and socialism has to be global in order to be effective. They also believe that it has to start with a country that's already gone through all the stages of industrialization. So if a country hasn't gone through the stages of industrialization, they don't think real communism can work there because they don't properly create the conditions for a post-capitalist society. They really do believe that. Why do you like any other pundits or analysts? Yes. There are some that I like. I think Andy No broadly does a pretty good job. There are absolutely some things that I disagree with Andy No on. They are intellectual disagreements, and we're allowed to have them. But I think Andy No is a really good person, and I loved his book about Antifa. His book about Antifa was one of the first things that I read when I started getting into the far left, and I do just think he's a good, genuine person. I think he's trying to get this information out there. Andy No has paid an incredible price for what he's done, and so even though I do absolutely have intellectual disagreements with that, I will continue to argue him on. I think he does a great job. There's also another guy that we like, and you can find him on YouTube. Actually, he's on YouTube. He doesn't get as much attention here, but follow the Stu Studio on Twitter at the Stu Studio. I think someone can probably put his handle in the chat. Stu Studio does amazing on the ground coverage about the left. Amazing. Stu Studio has been doing amazing coverage of the encampments, the protests. He has a whole, I think, dashboard where he tracks all the different leftist groups and he posts video that they post. And so he is an amazing resource. Really great. I think there's a lot of people doing boots on the ground protest coverage that I really like. Jonathan Cho, I really like, even though he works with Turning Point USA and I don't like Turning Point USA. But listen, I don't really care if people work with Turning Point USA if they're providing great content, and Jonathan Cho provides great content. I think that the Washington Free Beacon does some good reporting about the left, although I don't always agree with what they say, but I think that they actually do very good in-depth reporting about the left. I think that Trevor Loudon has done a really great job with his KeyWiki in terms of just getting a whole bunch of information in one place. I also disagree with Trevor Loudon on some things, but I think overall Trevor Loudon has provided some amazing resources, and I think he really does know his stuff. Again, even though I do have intellectual disagreements with him here and there, but there's always going to be intellectual disagreements. So those are some of the people I would say. Listen, just because I shit on a lot of conservative shills doesn't mean I shit on everyone. There are excellent people out there. There are not enough people who there's no one doing what I'm doing. There's no one doing what I'm doing. We've looked. And so I would love to find more people who are serious about analyzing the left. I have all sorts of things I want to build up that necessitate more people who are actually serious about this. And so I would love for there to be more. I'm not just trying to be difficult to be difficult. If I say I have a grievance with someone, it's because they are misinforming the public. Hey, I want to thank Blue Ginger over on Rumble for the rant. $20 Rumble rant. Have a great date night. You deserve it. You're a gem. Just started watching you this week. Thank you for being patient with us newbies. Listen, the veterans in the chat can tell you guys don't know how patient and nice I'm being. Okay. And I am going to be patient and nice because there are a lot of new people and we were all new once. And we all started learning about this stuff once and we all had to learn. And it is a lot and it is an overwhelming amount of information for a lot of people. So I'm really trying to be as nice as possible. I'm on my best behavior right now. You guys don't even know. I have barely even implemented the typical hazing ritual that everyone is required to complete to be in my community. You will probably go through the hazing ritual at some point if you stick around my channel, but just know the hazing ritual is a rite of passage. I have been put through my fair share of hazing rituals as well on the internet. Hazing makes us stronger. I'm very much a true believer in people developing a thick skin and getting used to hearing things they don't want to hear. Because quite frankly, the work I do on my channel, we listen to the left. You are going to hear a lot of bullshit that you don't want to hear. And if you break down and you start crying and complaining and whining every time you hear something you don't want to hear, you're not going to survive here, okay? So the hazing process is necessary, and I will do it when I feel the need to do it. But just know that I'm really trying to bring all the new people in a very nice way, where I'm really trying not to scare you off, because I'm going to show you a lot of scary shit on this channel, and it's all real. And you're going to be terrified and overwhelmed, and you're not going to want to believe it. And so we're trying to break you in gently and make it a nice process. And I'm really trying not to yell at people, even though I really want to sometimes. Lee, thank you for the super chat. Thanks. Just to clarify, he's not a communist. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Just going through the chat, guys. Trying to catch up with the chat. I got to end the stream pretty soon. God, I've been streaming for almost 2 hours. Shit. I got to get ready to go to Boston. Got to get ready. Is it better to order from Amazon is fine, Patricia. Amazon is fine. I appreciate it. If you want my books. I'm going through the chat a little bit now. Someone says I changed my hair over on Rumble. Well, you know what happened? I stopped cutting my hair. I didn't actually change my hair. I just stopped cutting it. And what do you know? It grew out. Let's see. Anybody know Karlyn's opinions of... Don't listen to Data Republican. Stop listening to Data Republican. Data Republican blocked me on Twitter the other day because I was posting stuff in her replies that contradicted the bullshit narrative that she is selling to people online. She deliberately blocked me from posting evidence that she was lying to people. So can we please stop following that bitch? Can we please stop? Hinge into reality, people. I don't dislike Andrew Wilson, to be very clear. I don't dislike Andrew Wilson. I actually like Andrew more than I want to actually admit in public. Not any, like, I like Andrew Wilson more than I actually want to admit. But Andrew is absolutely afraid to debate me on this issue. 110%. He doesn't want to do it. I promise you. And so he's welcome to do so. And I'm not afraid of him. He seemed to imply that I was afraid of sitting across the table from him and being on the receiving end. I'm actually not in any way. But I don't dislike Andrew Wilson. I don't dislike anyone. I love everyone. Except for Republicans and Democrats and conservatives. And communists. I love everyone except Republicans and Democrats and conservatives and communists. If you don't know who Data Republican is, don't worry about it. I think all the Andrew Wilson fans should go give Andrew shit the next time he does a live stream about chickening out. I think everyone should do that. Actually, you know, it's funny. We have actually talked about doing trading cards. I actually do want to make socialist trading cards at some point. It is on the list, so you're not wrong about that. You are not wrong. What can I do if learning from you, I'm told that those around me, I'm losing my mind and feeding me lies? You know they do. So just come look at the primary source information, Daniel. That's all I can really say. I'm not ready to tell them about the propaganda Discord yet for people saying that in the chat. People have to listen. Newbies are not ready for the propaganda Discord. Newbies have to earn their way into the propaganda Discord, okay? We have a giant Discord filled with leftist propaganda. And it's a drop in the bucket from the amount of leftist propaganda that exists. But basically, we're doing this project where we are archiving and cataloging leftist propaganda. And we have a Discord to do that. And you have to earn your way into the Discord, okay? You don't just get that on day one. You're not ready for it yet. But if you stick around and you do the work, you too can join the propaganda Discord. But we're not doing that today, all right? YouTube is a cruel mistress. So true, man. So effing true. All right, I'm just speeding through the chat right now. I think I'm almost at where you guys are. Yeah, you're talking about Stu Studio. He's awesome. Let's see. MA, thank you for the super chat. Is today's leftist climate a result of people dismissing ANCOMs 10 plus years ago? Yo, this started way before 10 years ago. This has been going on since the 30s in the United States. This has been going on for almost 100 years. So I would say that what we are experiencing today is a result of the right ignoring this problem for the last 100 years. People have to understand, socialism and communism proliferated in this country under right-wing presidents. The socialist and communist activist communities blew up under right-wing presidents or Republican presidents. And because the Republican president was the president, Republicans were like, we don't need to worry about that. But you got to understand, leftist subculture is outside of like the mainstream ecosystem. They were in these underground subcultures for a while. Think about the ACT UP movement in the 80s. The ACT UP movement in the 80s was the precursor to militant queer Marxism that we're seeing today. The ACT UP movement in the 80s proliferated and grew and expanded under Ronald Reagan. I think we're going to have a lot of left-wing militant activism expand under Donald Trump. Let's see. Can you explain the phenomenon of regular liberals who parrot social? So if you think that liberals parrot socialist posts, you are consuming conservative media. Liberals do not parrot socialist ideas. Real socialists and communists would disagree with you. The reason you think that is because conservative media is telling you that. And so come and see the real stuff and you'll see the difference. Liberals do not parrot socialist talking points. Democrats do not parrot socialist talking points. In fact, Kamala Harris pissed off the far left during her campaign because Kamala Harris would actually, there were far left protesters protesting at Kamala Harris rallies, and Kamala Harris basically told them to fuck off. Kamala Harris's husband told the far left protesters to fuck off. Who do you guys think were protesting the DNC? It was the communists and the socialists. The DNC did not have communist and socialist talking points. The communists and socialists were outside of the DNC, protesting the DNC more strongly than they protested the RNC. So please stop listening to the lies conservative media has told you. Come and hinge into reality, and you'll see the difference. Let's see. On a scale of 1 to 10, how organized is the far left? Extremely organized, but they're also decentralized. So the far left is extremely organized into decentralized cells. Those cells form voluntary alliances with each other or not. And so in some respects, this is hard to explain. In some respects, it's highly organized, but I also don't want people to think that the left is a monolith, because what you have is thousands of different leftist groups, thousands of different leftist cells all over the country. They don't necessarily talk to each other, though. They communicate through anarchist websites, they communicate through conferences and books and stuff like that. But it's not like all of these little cells are actively communicating with each other. And so they are organized within their cell and within the people they're communicating with. But there's also so many different groups, and people think that the left is a monolith when it's not. Was I ever approached by the government or a Soros rep to be a Fed? No. No. Soros doesn't fund the far left, guys. Soros funds progressives. He doesn't fund the far left. Let's see. I've had 0 beers so far today. This is my giant ass wooden cup that's about the size of my head. It's a really nice cup my husband got me for my birthday. It has a rope for a handle. I have had 1.5 cups of coffee today. That's it. That's it. No beer yet. Yeah, you'll all know when I'm not being nice. You'll all know. And then we'll see who survives. Only the strong survive. No, Data Republican is not a reliable source of information. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm not saying Data Republican gets everything wrong because they don't, but I've seen Data Republican get enough stuff wrong that I do not trust them as a source of information. Also, I know how much information Data Republican is not telling you, and oftentimes the biggest lies that the conservative right tells are lies of omission. They're the lies that they're not lying to you directly, they're just not giving you the information. That's actually the biggest problem. It's just the obfuscation of all of this information that exists out there that changes the entire context of what's going on, and they won't tell it to you because it doesn't support their narrative. Let's see. I can hear my husband taking a shower right now. So this is a sign that I need to wrap up the stream and actually get ready to go to Boston. No, Andrew Wilson. No. Andrew Wilson is a married man. I'm not disrespecting Andrew's wife like that, okay? We are not doing the internet boyfriend gag with Andrew Wilson. I am not his wife is a public person on the internet. Do you know what I don't want? For people who don't know, we joke about me being in internet relationships with people. I'm married. It's not actually real, but like we joke about this stuff. But in the case of Andrew Wilson, I'm not going to joke about this because his wife is a public person on the internet and I don't want to get into a fight with his wife. Okay? I don't have any beef with his wife. I don't want to start shit with his wife. They're in some tradcon relationship. Please don't do this. Come on. Sophie is a different thing. God. All right. You guys are chatting way too much. I can't keep up with everything. All right, that's all. Wait, okay, no, I'm gonna make sure I answer the rest of this. Any other super chats that came in, but I gotta wrap this up. I can't keep being here. Okay, hang on. Last super chat. Bleep YouTube. They blocked my evil white liberal comment. Well, I can't. Bob Paul. I can't do nothing about that. Can't do nothing about that. All right, guys. So that is all I have for today. Again, if you want to prepare for tomorrow with the No Kings protest, very best place to do so, per usual, is by heading over to my Substack. That is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. I have posted a report, the groups to expect at this weekend's No Kings protest. That is a report of what I am expecting to see. So you can download the PDF. You can read the full thing there. It's totally free. It's over on the Substack. Make sure you subscribe to my Substack while you're there. I will put the link in the chat. You can subscribe to the Substack for free, of course, but if you want to support the work I'm doing, sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. That is the very best place to fund my work. And that is all I've got. And I'm going to go head to Boston, and I will hopefully be back tomorrow in time for Socialism Saturday. If I'm not back in time for Socialism Saturday, I will stream later in the day. I will be coming home tomorrow night, okay? So if I'm not back in time for 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday, just make the assumption that I will be streaming at some point when I'm able to get my ass in front of the computer. But like, if there's something that happens, and I'm gonna keep following it. So that's gonna be what we're gonna do. And that is the plan. And I hopefully won't get beat up or anything, but I am gonna be wearing a disguise, so it'll probably be okay. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for hanging out with me for a couple hours, and I hope I helped with your questions. And I'll see you on the flip side. Take care, everyone. See you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months to May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Would you give me some idea?
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.